The following is a Papi Chulo Radio original program. The views and opinions expressed in the commentaries and/or interviews in the following program are solely those of the individuals and are not views of Papi Chulo Radio, its parent, affiliate, or subsidiary companies.
Welcome to the Silver Bells Murders, the unofficial American Gothic internet radio show exclusively on PapiChuloRadio.com. Papi Chulo Radio, pop culture on demand. Today is Friday, July 29th, and I am your host, Mike. During tonight's broadcast, we're going to recap, review, and dissect the latest episode of CBS American Gothic. Please welcome my co-host, Papi Chulo.
Welcome, everybody. Let's go for a hike in the woods late at night.
And last but certainly not least, Samantha Hoover.
Hello, listeners. Do you know who the Silver Bells killer is yet?
It's you.
Yes. You just gave away the whole season.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry, Brady.
Let's jump into our recap of Season 1, Episode 6, titled The Chess Players, and aired on July 27, 2016. When the Hawthorns are publicly implicated in this SBK case and forced to hole up in the house to avoid media scrutiny, they quickly begin to turn on one another. Also, Garrett lures Christina to the woods for a camping trip that takes a really drastic and dangerous turn.
Before Mike leads us into the initial reactions for the episode, let's discuss the ratings. American Gothic was flat, with 2.5 million total viewers and 0.6 in the demo.
So, with that being said, what was everyone's initial reaction to the episode? I'll start off with Samantha.
This episode was interesting. I liked it at first, and then the ending threw me for a loop, and I was so mad. But now that they're revealing that, the Silver Bells killer is a Hawthorne, they are trying to make it even more confusing than it has been before in showing us who the killer is, but I keep changing who it is, like every 5 minutes. So, yeah, I think it was overall very interesting.
Papi, what was your reaction?
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this series as a whole. So I thought it was another great episode. I loved the twists and the turns, and yeah, I mean, it was quite a ride, this episode, from food being thrown on the ground to secret rendezvous near the gazebo and knives being pulled out all over the place, and I mean, it was fantastic.
As for me, I really enjoyed the episode. I felt like it was definitely continuing the feeling and the dramatic scenes left that were made from the previous episodes, so I felt like it definitely fueled it. And same with me, I did not expect for it to end that way. So, but
So mad.
but I know I feel the exact same way. We're gonna go and talk about it a little bit later on, but before we get into a thorough recap, here are a few reminders on how you can interact with the show via social media. Follow the show on Tumblr, thesilverbellsmurders.tumblr.com. You can follow the station on social media. I mean, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram at Papi Chulo Radio. You can even help support Papi Chulo Radio financially by visiting GoFundMe.com/Papi Chulo Radio. Do you have any questions, maybe suggestions or comments, or hey, even concerns? Email us via contact@PapiChuloRadio.com. Are you interested in joining the Papi Chulo Radio team as an on-air personality or, hell, even a blog contributor? Email talent@PapiChuloRadio.com. You can even binge listen to your favorite Papi Chulo Radio programs by visiting PapiChuloRadio.com/archives. And search for the Silver Bells Murders through iTunes and hit that subscribe button. New episodes are available to download on Fridays throughout the entire summer. Now let's go ahead and dive right into this episode. So, as it kicked off, from the previous episode, it went ahead and pretty much perpetuated with Tessa and Brady going straight to where her sister was having that debate at the old high school. And we noticed that already the scene is kind of already dramatic. They're trying to rush over there. They're trying to make sure that they give their sister, well, Tessa's sister, a heads up about the information that was leaked out from the previous episode. So the moment that they get there, we see this really kind of, to me, I think is an obnoxious reporter tells her, how do you feel about this new information that came up in regards to somebody being implicated as being the being the Silver Bells killer, who it's not Cam, but it's somebody within your family. And you see the entire audience erupting in a feud, trying to figure out, and you see Allison's face just completely shocked. I mean, she's destroyed. Poppy, can you give me an idea of what that feeling was like? Can you more or less describe in your own words how you think Allison took it? Or do you feel like she was just completely devastated? Do you think, like, do you think she was feeling in that moment?
I think in her eyes, her world ended because she's been so focused on this political campaign. Like, in her mind, she had already won. She had just had to, like, knock off this dude, and bam, she was in the big chair, making the big decisions. And now, after this reveal, I mean, there's no way that she can continue on her campaign, because whether she is the SBK or one of her family members is the SBK, I mean, there's so much suspicion on the family now that there's no way that she's going to be able to do anything as far as in a political office. Like, her family name is now forever tainted. So I think she literally saw her hopes and her political aspirations and dreams just go poof.
So you feel like for her it's the devastation, the fact that her entire political career, her hard work, everything she amounted to just literally disappeared in a blink of an eye.
I think so. I feel like that was probably the first thing that she thought about.
Okay. Samantha, do you want to add anything to that?
I feel like this is the first time where she did not have an answer to any question she was asked. Just like Madeline. She was expecting this reporter to ask her, oh, gun reform, oh, this, oh, that, about the campaign. And she goes, your family's on the hook for a murder. What do you have to say? So, yeah, I agree with Poppy. I think everything that she's worked so hard to cover up just kind of went down the drain in that second. And she just did not know what to do about it. And we don't get to see what she said, if she said anything. But she looked devastated.
So basically, the vast humiliation just overtook her, and it just looked like she just froze and just didn't have an answer.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
What it appears to be.
I'm going to assume she probably said no comment, and she ran off that stage while the man from Veronica Mars was laughing.
Probably. And then, moving on a little bit further, we see that the family is there, excluding Garrett. It's there in the living room-ish type, however you want to describe it. And the tension there you can feel is just intense, trying to figure out, okay, how on earth did Cam, give his, DNA? Cam says he has no clue, that he didn't do it. But then it becomes apparent that Tessa says that, well, I gave Brady permission to use one of the things that Cam was using to shoot up as evidence for his DNA in order to help clear his name. And we have the mother looking at Brady and automatically getting upset and saying, he betrayed you once before. And he says it flat out right in front of him. He says that, he betrayed you once. How on earth could you even possibly even think about even doing this? And then in the exchange, we even hear Allison say, it doesn't even matter. That doesn't matter what Tessa's reason is, the fact that Brady did it. The main thing is that, well, it happened. And in that instance, you can see that Allison's more worried about that somebody in her family, at least what it appears to be from our perspective, that Allison just feels upset, betrayed, everything you can imagine, that somebody within her family had something to do with these atrocities. Samantha, when you saw this scene and you noticed the little exchanges, do you feel that Tessa was justified to try to help clear Cam's name? Or do you feel like it was the wrong move, that Tessa should have not given Brady permission?
I think we discussed this when Brady first tried to get the DNA. Yes, I do think Tessa was justified. And just because her family doesn't feel that she was, I mean, it was in a good motive to try and clear her family, which kind of backfired a lot, and I figured it would anyways. Brady did marry into this family, and he has a loyalty to them, but he also has a loyalty to the public and every victim that the Silver Bells killer got to. So I really think that Tessa was justified. And yeah, of course her family's going to be angry. They're trying to cover this up. Madeline then said something about, it wasn't towards Brady, I think it was something along the lines of that they're going through this all over again. You've had a similar situation? That's weird and interesting. I'd like to hear more about that.
Or she might be just talking about the whole thing with the hairbrush.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I'm skeptical of either side, so she could have just been talking about the hairbrush, but I don't know. It's Madeline.
It's just the Madeline thing. It's what it is.
Yeah.
So, what I'm going to go ahead and do is with the exchange with Garrett and Christina, I'm going to push that a little bit later because it kind of does like little miniature back and forth. So all of that, we'll go ahead and talk about that near the ending-ish, because we feel that way it'll be much easier for us to go ahead and explore each of the scenes that happen. So, Poppy, you actually threw out one of the scenes you had mentioned earlier in regards to Madeline just trying to bring the peace, I guess, trying to make everything normal with her family.
She's trying to be mommy.
Right, she was trying to be mommy. The fact that she tried cooking and she made all the workers take a day off, She tried to make food, and you can see everybody is looking at the food like, okay.
You cook?
You actually cook? And she's trying to bring everybody together considering the circumstances that are unfolding everywhere in front of them. And you see everybody is like, no, I'm okay. Thanks. I don't want anything. And you see her just explode. She literally just gets the plate right after she asked anybody if they wanted a piece or anything, and you see her and she just says, no one, Cam, and Cam makes a little comment saying, you know what, in reality it kind of looks like human remains. So she literally just puts everything on the plate and she just tosses it to the side. You can tell that she's fed up, she's pissed, she definitely just looks angry.
Yes.
When you saw that, did any of you guys feel that it was in regards to maybe the fact that everything is piling up on her, or maybe it was the fact that now, like how Samantha had mentioned about Allison, that the fact that she's starting to lose control over everything that's happening, and she's just upset that she's no longer that person in control anymore? Or do you feel like it was another underlying feeling?
Sam is more suspicious of Madeline than I am, so I kind of want to hear what she has to say.
Yeah, ooh, that's true.
Well, I think she is just pissed off that she can no longer make everyone do her bidding. And since the news got out that their family is hiding a killer, I think she's just losing it. She's starting to lose it, and we're seeing that. And it starts off very slow. She's very controlled, and she just threw the food away. Oh, dessert? Anybody? If the main course wasn't so good
Already
looking.
disgusting enough.
Yeah,
I
I
can just
wouldn't.
imagine what the dessert would have been like.
But yeah, so I think Madeline can no longer control her surroundings, so she's starting to act out. Unfortunately, she gets violent, I guess, and maybe that will confirm my theory of her being the killer originally in later episodes.
But Poppy, you said it yourself that you're not as suspicious of her. So what do you take of her interesting approach on the family dinner?
Well, I liked the scene. I thought it was pure comedy. Like, I laughed when she threw it on the ground and then she was like, dessert? I thought it was hilarious. I think what was interesting about it is that we being the viewers, have seen a different side to Madeline. Her kids are used to her being the matriarch, the one in control, like the rich bitch lady. And we saw that she does not come from riches. So obviously she knows how to cook, because it doesn't seem like her mother would have been the type of mother that was there all the time cooking for her. So I thought that was a nice little wink to her adventure outside of town with her mom. So I liked that. I didn't think it looked that bad, to be quite honest. It looked like she was like trying to attempt like a chicken cordon bleu type of thing, like some type of. It looked like it was. I'm assuming it was like some sort of chicken, maybe meat, or that was like stuffed with something. Maybe it didn't look the most appetizing, but it looked like she actually made an effort. So I like that she tried to do, I guess maybe, what she had hoped her mom would do, during the tough times back in the day. I don't know. But I'm not that suspicious of Madeline. I do feel like she knows a whole lot more. And those secrets are slowly starting to creep out, because she keeps on, as we've seen in the past, she always has a reason for stuff. And it's always interesting how she like never has the reason before until she's like pushed into a corner. So I am suspicious of her, but I don't feel like she's the killer. So I'm not like Sam is suspicious of her. Although I do have my eye on Madeline.
I am a
So
journalist, so I look at everything.
I know, tabloid journalism. You're a vulture.
So you're more on the notion that she is definitely aware of things that are happening, and she may not be necessarily the person that's committing these, but she's aware, and she is, I guess you could say, a part of it, that she knows that she's letting on more than what she knows.
Correct. I feel like she's covering up. I feel like she, much like Garrett in the beginning, and then Cam at one point, they're red herrings. That's my take on it. And I feel like she knows a whole lot about what happened.
Oh, okay. And then, speaking of which, during that scene, we also see that everybody decides to throw in, I guess you could say, accusations, as opposed to, like, for instance, Cam talking about, well, I had, I guess, this repressed memory, and I saw, a body being dragged down and hitting the stairs, and he makes a very vivid description of what he believes he saw based upon his repressed memories. And you just see everybody just making exchange as to who could potentially be the Silver Bells killer. And you just see again Madeline just saying, what, just everybody just go to bed. And you see Allison saying, it is 9:00. Like, are you kidding me? She just says, what, just everybody just go to bed. And you see Cam just saying, well, no bedtime story then? And you just see her getting, upset. But Cam decides to make make light of this situation. And speaking of Cam, we see that he decides to, be with Jack, which still freaks me the fuck out, by the way. And they're talking about
all he needs is a hug.
Yeah, like tons of hugs, apparently, with a bunch
and a straitjacket
along with it, right? So you see Cam and Jack are, kind of bonding, I guess, and you just see Jack make make a comment about how serial killers have a tendency to have predatory birds in their, place of living. And he makes a little comment saying, well, this house has a lot of predatory birds. And you just see Cam like, God damn it, Jack. Like, God damn it. In your guys' mind, do you feel like Jack is a representation of what Cam was when he was little? Or do you guys feel like it's a little bit more or a little bit less? Like, what are your guys' take on Jack as of right now, from the beginning of the first episode to now? Do you feel like it's slowly progressing into something, or do you feel like it's going to be like in a monotone where he's just going to be this, literally just this crazy every episode, or every episode that he appears? Poppy?
I still think my hypothesis about Jack is 100% accurate to what I've been saying since the beginning. I feel like Jack is there to show us, A, that there's some sort of psychosis in the family, and B, that someone his age could potentially be the Silver Bells killer, because all of the Hawthorne grown-up kids would have been around-ish his age when the killings would have started. So I feel like he's there to prove to us, okay, we should be suspicious of these adult children, because even though they might have been 9, 10, 11, 12, they could still have been, psychopaths at that age.
That's true. He does definitely give some sort of impression of what you might want to expect on the adult children's, I guess you could say. Samantha, anything you want to add to that?
He did say that psychopathy sets in at age 5, so I have to agree with that.
He's just some sort of troubled kid, and
all
but
he needs is love.
Insight. He has insight.
Oh yes, he does. He definitely does have insight. I'll definitely.
He's got
give
something.
That. He just makes just a grand entrance with his, comments. And speaking of grand entrances, we see Cam's downstairs, kind of just, peering around, looking around, and he sees, again, predatory birds. He sees an owl. He sees paintings of a vulture, and you just see he's literally just walking around and seeing all these different bird statues there. And then, surprise, surprise, we see Sophie come in and saying, it's pretty easy to get in here. And he's asking, what are you doing here? And basically they're just having a little exchange, and I'm thinking of Jess right now, about Sophie right now, how much she
loves her.
Oh yes, she totally loves her. And we see this little exchange, and we see, Sophie trying to lean in, kind of, kiss him, and we see Cam kind of just pushing her away, saying, no, you can't. So we see that he's somewhat resisting, this little exchange that she's given. So Cam decides to tell her, you know what, we just go ahead and call it a night. And we see him that he's unable to sleep, and he's with Tessa, and they're reminiscing on details, about when they were much younger. And we also see that Tessa brings up some good points about Garrett, and then we see Cam bringing out some of the bad points about Garrett. The fact that he punched him when he took his bite, and Tessa says, but this is the same Garrett that helped you out, by giving you the pills that you needed. And they do this little exchanges, about Garrett, bringing out both his good and his bad side. Samantha, when Cam was talking about how he feels that it was his father, but then he makes about his father being the Silver Bells killer, but then he makes, these decisions about, these remarks about Garrett. Do you feel like Cam already has a kind of an idea of who he believes is the killer? Like, do you think he already has it set in stone in his mind that it's got to be Garrett, or it's got to be the father?
He was saying it was his dad pretty harshly at the
first
dinner table.
time, right? During that dinner table, right?
Just thinking about the relationship between Mitch and Garrett before Mitch died, and seeing how tense that was, and just thinking about that, it could be either of them, but I also think, I just can't think it's Garrett. Like, I just can't. now that we saw Mitch in those hallucinations from last week, leading Cam down the stairs, looking at the body, I really think Mitch had something to do with it, something significant, and that's why Garrett ran away for like 14 years. And yes, of course, he is kind of an outlandish person overall. So yeah, and that's the brotherly thing to do. Like, if you steal something, I'm going to punch you. Or, whatever, right? But he's not going to do that with Tessa. So they both remember him differently. But overall, I don't think Garrett did anything. I just think, I think Cam could have an idea of who it was, and I think the father is more guilty than Garrett, to be quite honest.
Okay, Poppy, anything you want to add to that, or you want to jump in?
No, I think Samantha did a good job of answering. I'm trying to think. I don't think I can add anything else to what she said.
So we see Allison kind of reminiscing about her father. I guess she puts it puts a smile on her face. She's sitting on the chair and she's smiling, looking at everything that her father has. And she notices that there's a book on the shelf and it's titled Wuthering Heights. So she decides to pick it up, and she still has smile on her face, and she opens it up and she sees these pictures of Madeline when she was younger. Very, very beautiful pictures of her when she was younger. Right?
Boudoir photography. Listeners, Google that. Sam, don't Google that.
So we see her look, peering through, and she notices that there's a folded up paper also right under the pictures, and she picks it up, and later on we see that it's a police report of Mitch, of, beating somebody nearly to death. And we see Allison, Cam, and Tessa confronting their mother in regards to, what on earth happened. And Madeline decides to let everything out, and she describes how she also, she committed adultery and she cheated on her husband, and, he was upset and told her, don't see him anymore. And so she decided to call it quits, but then she decided that she wanted to reconcile with him. And when she describes that when that gentleman decided to come over, that they were just talking, they weren't really doing anything, that their father walked in and he just snapped. He got upset, pissed, and he beat him up pretty much almost to death, and that supposedly he was dragging his body down the stairs. And that's when Madeline states to Cam that that's what you saw. That what you saw was not necessarily a dead person, it was just an unconscious person being dragged down from the stairs. That's what it was. In that moment, did you guys feel that Madeline tried controlling the situation again? That she tried saying, that she tried putting two things together and trying to tie out that loose end? Or do you guys actually believe Madeline's story, that it was actually the gentleman was unconscious and he was being pulled down from the stairs? Samantha?
I so want to believe her.
Right?
But she just has an answer for everything. No, you didn't let me finish. She just has an answer for everything. Like, there's no point at all in this show so far where she has not answered a question. I do think she did cheat on Mitch. I think that probably caused a rift in their marriage. Do I think that man was unconscious? No, he was dead.
So you feel like it was the gentleman wasn't unconscious, he was dead?
Yeah, and then I think the ending to that story was that they left the body somewhere around the property. I remember her ending it that way, and that just seemed kind of off. Like, it was okay and up until that point, and then I was just like, go to bed. It's past your bedtime.
Go to bed. Bobby, was there anything you want to add to that?
It was just hella suspicious.
Right.
I said this earlier in the episode. She always has an answer for everything, and yeah, it just seems so weird and planned. It's hella suspicious. Like, all of a sudden, okay, you learn that Cam remembers a body, so now all of a sudden, okay, that's what the body was.
Right. It seemed way too much of a coincidence.
Convenient.
Right. Too much of a convenience, and it was too much of a coincidence that, it's the same body that was being dragged down the stairs, and it was a way to answer Cam's suspicion of what may possibly have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems just kind of just a little tad off, just minor, if anything. So, moving on just a little bit further, we see Allison with her kids, which, by the way, those two are completely adorable. By the way, they're adorable little girls. I feel like they're not as creepy as Jack, but again, you may never know. And we see Allison with Tom, and Tom says, I'm sorry, that I did that, kind of upset her earlier in the episode. Kind of made a little jab at her saying, oh, well, Naomi would be able to, comfort you in this time of need. And you see Allison just purely upset, like, really? Like, you're really going to bring that up now after everything? So we see Tom kind of snooping out with Allison's phone, and she texts Naomi saying, pretending to be Allison to meet me, at a certain location. And we see Naomi put, okay, I love you. And you could see the camera kind of like made sure to fixate on Tom's face. You see him, I didn't see too much of an angry face, but more of like are you kidding me? Like, really type of face. So if we were to move that on further, do you guys feel that Tom should have done that to try to meet up with Naomi, or do you feel like no, he should have confronted her about it, should have kind of confronted Allison about it, or do you guys feel like Tom trying to find out this way was okay in that sense? Poppy?
I think he feels justified because, yeah, I mean, I know
considering that Allison technically committed adultery just like her mother, but it's just the circumstances are different.
Well, the circumstances are very different since apparently it's allowed, because he was all down with like hearing about it a couple of episodes ago. So it's an open relationship versus like straightforward cheating.
Monogamous relationship. Right.
Exactly. No, but I'm saying straightforward cheating as to what Madeline did.
Right.
So, I mean, it was interesting that he went that route. I can see why he did that, maybe because Allison has so much else on her mind and she's preoccupied with everything else that's going on in the family. But it was hella suspicious that he was like, okay, I'm gonna take control of this thing. I don't like the way that they're looking at each other, so I need to confront her and I need to talk to her by the gazebo.
Samantha, what about you? How do you feel about that little stunt Tom pulled?
I understand why he did it. And I think when they were in the bedroom, he was a little annoyed because he was just like, well, you said this was a fling. Are you actually having feelings for her? So I don't know what the boundaries are for their relationship. I think he was quite annoyed and he isn't getting the truth and honesty that he needs. So he thought he had to go behind her back to get it. And I think at this point, that's the only way he's going to get any information, because Allison is so tied up with the election. This is a scandal now in her election campaign. So she's all tied up with this. And I don't think she was in the first place willing to open up to Tom about this somewhat affair. But now she's even less inclined because she's so stressed out, and that's like an alibi she can use. Like, oh, honey, I'm tired. I don't want to talk about this anymore or ever again or whatever. And she's like, oh, don't touch me last night. Like, that's what she did. Oh, but Naomi, like, that was okay with her, but with Tom, your husband, like, God forbid, right? So that was a little weird. Do I think it was right that he did that? Not really, but I understand why, and I hope he got the answers he wanted.
So then moving on, because since we're still talking about Tom, Allison, and Naomi, we see that Tom decides to wait for Naomi, and they both have their little exchange. Samantha, how did you feel about that exchange that they had with each other, explaining about how Naomi says, well, it's you, don't you, how awkward it must feel for you? And she throws in like little jabs at him, saying that, well, she's not necessarily confiding in with her, but, making it apparent that she's showing interest towards her. Do you feel like you're choosing, would you choose a side between Naomi or Tom, or do you feel like this was just more of like adding theatrics, adding drama to this plot line for Allison. Like, how did you feel overall about that scene?
I definitely don't think it's something to ignore, but I don't want to jump right into their relationship. Like, this is a mess, and it's on top of all of the other messes we're dealing with as viewers. I really think that Naomi was trying to downplay Allison's relationship with Tom as well as her own. Because, yes, she was expressing interest, but you don't just text someone, I love you, because you're interested. You know what I mean? It's a lot
Right.
deeper than that. And I think Tom was just trying to play it off too, like, well, it's just sex and blah, blah, blah. And he's trying to make himself feel better because why would his wife cheat on him? If, big if, Allison ends up being the Silver Bells killer, I do think Naomi would have a hand in helping her. Honestly, like, I don't know how far their relationship goes back, like how long they've known each other, but you know, she's her campaign manager, and if she has secrets to hide, she's her PR person as well.
She
so
can definitely take care of the damage control.
absolutely, and she's very good with that. We saw that with Kimmy. Like, that was conniving. So what else could she do? You know?
Right. Poppy, how did you feel about that little scene with Naomi and Tom?
I think it gave us a little bit more insight into the relationship. I mean, obviously, after that scene, it was 100% clear that they had an open relationship and an open marriage, and that she could go and play around as long as he got the chance to hear the tales that were created in the bedroom. And she didn't know, obviously. And she feels that, you know, they have a connection. And so she was like, you know, oh, you're feeling threatened. You know, this is what you're doing. Well, guess what? I'm not backing off. I'm getting all that. Ooh, nah, nah.
So, now that we talked about most of the things, we'll go ahead and go with the whole Garrett and Christina. But before we jump into that, we see that Brady tells Tessa, you know, have you seen, you know, where Garrett is? And Tessa brings out and says, oh, because everybody's still trying to find Garrett because nobody knows where he's at. And Tessa brings a bottle, the prescription bottle that that Garrett gave to Cam, you know, in order to help him, you know, sober up and get better. And she says, well, you know, he's been talking to this lady friend. Maybe this is, you know, this is her. So he looks at the name and he notices that it's the daughter of one of the victims, the last victim that the Silver Bells killer murdered. And they're frantic, and Brady wants to call it in and say, wait, you know, I need to call it in. You know, you never know. And Tessa says, no, don't call it in. Let me go with you because I can talk to him. Which advice would you have gone for? Would you have done what Tessa did as far as, you know what, let me go with you because I can, you know, talk to him, because the relationship between her and Garrett obviously is pretty good? Or would you have guys called it in?
Call it in. This is a police investigation. You know, it can't be all about you, Tessa. We need to do this the legal way.
Samantha, would you have called the police, or would you have tried to handle it kind of like how Tessa did, go with Brady so that way you could speak to Garrett?
No, I agree with Poppy. He did what he had to do yet again. I understand that. He's a suspect, and he's out in the woods with some girl that was the daughter of a victim of the killer that he's a suspect of being. Obviously, you call the police. You don't just leave it up to the family.
I definitely respect that. Yeah, I can agree with that. It's definitely should not be something that's taken lightly. It's definitely something that you should more than likely call it in, because you never know, and it's more about the safety of everybody that's involved, especially if it's another person, excluding yourself. So I can definitely agree with that. So we see throughout the entire episode, we see that Garrett is with Christina and they're on the woods. You know, he tells her, you know, that way you can, you know, see, you know, get to know me a little bit better. And we see her, she just nonchalantly just says, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go with you, you know, to the woods. It's both of them. And we notice that she tries to understand where Garrett's coming from. You know, she asks him like the typical questions, you know, why did you leave, or, you know, what made you decide to stay? And, you know, he throws in like little nice comments saying, you know, I was gonna leave, but, you know, up until, I met you. And throughout that entire little engage, do you guys feel like Garrett actually really meant that? Do you guys feel like that Garrett actually has some sort of, or wants to build a connection towards Christina? Or do you guys feel like that because the fact that she was the, victim's daughter, that do you feel like it's more of not necessarily pity, but she feels bad for this person, that she never got this type of closure? And do you guys feel like that he's slowly trying to get into that, or do you guys think it's something else? Poppy?
I think it's innocent. I'm trying to see Garrett for the nice person that he seems to be. So I feel like even though we don't know his intentions and we're purely speculating at the moment because he hasn't said anything about it at all, like we haven't even heard him talk to anybody else about this. So I feel like it's good intentions. I feel like, because maybe he knows a little bit, he feels bad for her in a sense, and maybe he was just trying to reach out, and then all of a sudden he ends up getting the feels, and
The feels.
yeah, he gets the feels in his heart, he gets the feels down there, and she's got feels all over the place, and they connect the feels, and you know what I'm saying? So Sam doesn't know, so don't fill her in. But I feel, speaking of the feels, I feel like he is trying to do something good, and because his like romantic feelings are involved, it makes things completely difficult. And I don't know why he's doing this though, and I'm looking forward to finding out why he ended up getting involved with her, like why he specifically went out to look for her. But right now, I don't feel it's anything nefarious.
Okay,
Even
so
though the writers have been trying to make it seem shady as hell with all the cliffhangers and twists and all that kind of stuff.
So you feel like that the writers are kind of trying to push the idea that, or give the idea that, well, he's kind of bad boyish, but not really.
Well, I think they're trying to make it seem like he's the Silver Bells killer, so they're trying to make him look suspicious as hell, and I'm not buying it. Sorry, writers.
I'm not buying it. Samantha, how do you feel? Are you kind of like in the same thought process as Poppy, or do you have a different take on it?
As a side note, I do have a boyfriend, so I get the love feelings. I get that, Poppy. Anyways, yeah, I really don't think Garrett is up to anything bad. I really think that he just wanted some time alone with this girl he likes. What guy doesn't? If he went to go tell his family, like, oh, hey, mom, I'm going out for, like, a day in the woods, bye. She would have been like, no, you must stay here. Like, go to bed. It's past your bedtime. She's very, I guess, controlling. And they're still, like, they have bedtimes. Like, they're, like, what, 20s, 30s? Ridiculous. Anyways, but, yeah, they are definitely making him out to be more suspicious. And I don't appreciate that because he looks the part. But that's the total, like, killer trope, I guess. But he's totally not. He's the exact opposite. He's a teddy bear. You know, the woods is always a kind of a creepy place in the first place, but he lived there for 14 years and he knows it like the back of his hand. And he wanted to let her into his world, so I think that was more inviting rather than like suspicious.
Right, it just gives the impression that it just looks eerie and suspicious, the fact that it's the woods, but you do make a great point, the fact that it's his world, it's what he understood after he left. I mean, he, again, 14 years, he only knew, the world of in the forest. So I guess in a way he was trying to showcase, this is a part of me, this is what I know and understand and grow into. So
yes,
he was trying to be, sincere. He was trying to be caring and, to make it not, maybe, I guess you could say trying to make it special, but to try to show her that, he is, kind and trying to showcase that, this is the side of him that is really him. And then moving on a little bit further, we see now that moving on past a little bit further, we see that she gets a voicemail from Brady saying, this is Detective Brady.
Wait, she also has that suspicious scene with the knife.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. So she's by herself and, he's decided to go get more firewood, and he explains that he is going to go ahead and talk about a little bit more about him after he gets, the firewood. So we see that these three gentlemen, you could tell they're kind of inebriated. They've had quite a bit to drink, and we see that, he's like, hey, where's your boyfriend at? And she appears to be calm. She doesn't look like she's worried or anything. And she says, oh, well, he just went to go get firewood, be right back. And he says, well, if you were my girl, I wouldn't leave you alone by yourself, making that, point that he wouldn't leave her alone. And she says, well, it's a good thing I'm not your girl. Little snappy comebacks that were kind of good. I'm not going to lie. They were pretty good. And we see Garrett is behind the three gentlemen, and you could see on his face that he just, with a stern look, and he says, oh, I'm just, inviting, you and your girl if you guys want to come and drink. And he says, no, I'm good, but I'm going to give you two choices. You can either, stay here or you can leave. He makes a point to say, a huge part of me really, really wants you to stay. And he pulls out the knife. And you could tell that they are freaked. They feel like this guy is just completely nuts, completely a psychotic, just flat out crazy. And they decide, let's just leave. And they decide to leave. And Christina says, what in the world was that all about? And he says, what? It was to scare them to get them out of here. And she, in her mind, she can't comprehend why he did that. And feeling that he's just a little off, she's starting to see that this encounter that he had is just really, really off. Samantha, do you feel that for him to portray this side of him, do you feel like for her it was kind of like an eye opener that, well, maybe Garrett is maybe another type of person, or maybe he's only pretending in that scenario? How would you have taken it?
If I was there and the guy I'm hanging out with pulls a knife, even if it wasn't on me,
and he does that, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't be feeling too safe anymore. But since I'm safe from behind a television set, I see that.
Well, there's that.
Yeah, I see that he's trying to defend himself, but it looks kind of sinister because I think that's all he knows. And I really think that the Hawthorns kind of shielded off their kids in a way when they were little, and they really don't know how to react with the real world, the outside world. So I think that's all he knows if someone threatened him or something threatened him in the woods.
Or if it appears to be threatening towards him and somebody else.
Yes.
That this is his response, that this is the only way that he knows how to deal with the issue in front of him.
It wasn't like he was pulling it on her, but I mean,
right.
It was within a good vicinity of her, so yeah, I would have been scared. As a viewer, I didn't think it was bad.
Yeah, because we trust him.
So,
yes.
Poppy, do you feel that it was justified in
her
Garrett's
freak out
position?
Oh, him.
Well,
yeah. I mean, you don't really know who these dudes are. I mean, these are the same guys, I think, that like drove by them and they were like, woohoo, yeah. Woo.
Yes.
So it's like you don't know what their intentions are. I mean, they're very close to her and she's by herself, and you could tell that the dude that was kind of like all alpha, like, hey, I'm the big man on campus, like was being a bit aggressive, and so you don't know who these people are, what they're trying to do. So I mean, I get why he did it, and I also get why she got creeped out by it.
Right, because it's not something that every day you see somebody pulling out a knife on somebody.
Exactly,
right
and they still really don't know each other, so it's not like they've been in a relationship for a while and she would understand his intentions.
Yeah, that's true. So I feel like both sides were justified in their own way. And if we were to move that a little bit, further to even perpetuate Christina's thought process about Garrett, she notices that she has a voicemail on her phone, and on the voicemail, it's Brady telling her, you are with somebody who is, potentially a suspect for the Silver Bells murder. And you could see that her face is completely petrified. She looks like she's scared, and she notices that Garrett says, hey, I thought you said, no phones or whatever. And she pulls out the knife. She pulls out the knife and says, no, you stay away from me. Stay right there away from me, and he tries to tries to comfort her, saying, "Hey, wait, I can explain." And she immediately makes the accusation that, well, you killed my father and you were trying to come out here to kill me. And he says, no, that's not it at all. So then she asks, just give me the keys, just put them on the ground, step back, and I'll take the keys. So he, of course, abides by it and throws keys on the ground. He's, takes a few steps back, and as she reaches down to get the keys, Garrett moves forward, I guess, to try to either disarm Christina or to try to, you know, make her understand that he's not here to hurt her, or whatever his intentions are. We see that suddenly something happens. A knife goes in through somebody. It just goes through either Christina or Garrett, and we see that it moves a little bit further, and we see that Brady sees that there's a truck there, and he believes it's Garrett and says, Garrett, step out of the car. And we see it's Christina that steps out of the car. And Brady's like, is terrified that something happened to Christina. But in reality, it's Garrett's blood on her jacket. And we come to the realization that Garrett is the one who was stabbed. And the camera zooms out. Before we see the little scene with Garrett, we also see that one of the believe he was a detective, if I'm not mistaken, is talking with the rest of the family in the dining table, and they say that there was a DNA evidence, and it was shown that it was Mitch, that the DNA that was linked to on the belt was Mitch. And nobody could comprehend, there's no way, you could have the DNA of somebody that was already cremated and everything. And everybody's trying to figure out how on earth, that DNA came across. And it comes to the realization that there was blood on the jersey that was there in the school that had his blood. And we see that Brady is the one that's looking to the jersey and notices the blood there. So it's kind of gives you the idea that maybe Brady was the one who got it. Who knows? Maybe. But in that exchange, you see everybody's faces. Some people's faces are out of, shock. And then you see Allison just, again, not being able to comprehend. And literally the same thing for Madeline. But in Madeline's case, she looks a little worried, but she also looks like she may have just, for all the efforts that she put in to try to cover up everything, she just can't. She's starting to lose control over everything that's going on. And as the episode ends, we see Garrett is on the ground bleeding out, and his right hand is twitching a little bit, and you just see him staring blankly up into the sky. In those two scenes, how did you guys feel? What was y'all's reaction? Did you
awful?
Were you upset? Were you happy? You were upset?
Yes.
Why so?
Garrett is a teddy bear, and you stabbed him, and you are the scum of the earth. I don't like her anymore.
Christina, you are the scum of the earth.
Oh, yes. Wow. See, I didn't think that in the beginning. I'm not going to lie. In the beginning, I thought, because of, the look that she gave, I was like, oh my gosh, the police are looking for you, Garrett. And all of a sudden, Christina gets accidentally stabbed by you. I was like, please don't let this happen.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. I was like, oh my god, they're going to make it even worse for him. But no.
He was the one that got stabbed. No, he was blinking his eyes and all this kind of stuff. I was like, there's no way they're going to kill him off.
Well, I mean, if you look at the very, very last part, you actually just see him he's actually staring. He gives one little blink, and he's just staring up in the air. But it's only for 3-4 seconds. But again, it shows that he's in danger of, potentially dying, which I hope they don't kill him off. It'd be kind of weird if they did, I think, because I feel like he's a really strong character. But it does give off this impression that, Christina didn't seem too distraught that she stabbed Garrett, as opposed to when Brady pulled her out from the car. He just, she just said, it's not my blood. And she just said, it's just not my blood. So it does give that impression that she definitely knows, maybe she does know how to handle herself, or, those little exchanges. She seemed really witty and make sarcastic remarks. Who knows? Maybe she knows a little bit more than she's letting on. Who knows? But if we had to rate the episode from 1 to 10 silver bells, what would you guys give it? I'll start it off with Samantha.
I will rate this episode 8 silver bells out of 10.
8. Okay. Why would you give it 8?
I did like this episode a lot. They're really keeping us on our toes with who the killer could be. And this might be the first week I change my prediction. We'll see.
Gas.
There's little shocks here and there, like the police report from Mitch hidden in that book. And Jack being somewhat normal, he's kind of acting like a human being. That's pretty interesting. So he can change. I think he has some kind of personality disorder, to be quite honest. He has a lot of problems.
Oh,
But overall, 8 out of 10, it was a solid episode.
nice. Bobby, if you had to rate it from 1 to 10 silver bells, what would you give it?
I'm gonna give it 8.5 silver bells. I enjoyed the
8.5.
episode. I thought it was another strong episode. I feel like each episode is getting either a little bit stronger or it's still on like the same strength of the previous episode. Lots of great twists and turns, great reveals. This time it was a really good cliffhanger at the end because
Nice.
we really are wondering, what's going to happen with Garrett. I liked all of the characters' motivations and the advancement of the plot lines, and the reveals were fantastic as well.
8.5. Okay, for me, I think I'm gonna have to give it, probably an 8.5 too, because the fact that it was still able to keep up the way that the last episode ended in such a climactic way, and it moved forward with it. It was immediately right after, instead of being dull and then trying to lead up into it again. It was actually, I felt like it was a really strong episode, and the ending itself, to me, I felt like it was a little bit of a twist, because I thought Garrett was going to accidentally stab Christina and it was going to look really bad on him. But no, it turned out that he was the one that gets stabbed. So I think that approach is really, really cool. I hope they don't kill him off. So that's my intention right now. And honestly, the entire episode I think was really great. So I'm hoping that the next episode is just as strong or maybe even better. Hopefully it leads up into something even more. So we'll go ahead and see that. But on that note, who do you guys think is the Silver Bells killer? So I start off with Samantha first. For this part, I'm going to start off with Poppy. Who do you think is the Silver Bells killer?
I still think it's Tessa. I've been stuck on Tessa since episode 2.
Even though she's a little girl back then,
Yes,
Madeline,
that's why the
even
reason that
Madeline
we
said
have
she's
Jack.
only 10.
Exactly,
That's true.
because Madeline knows a whole lot more.
Oh, that's so true. Yes, she does.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
she
feel like it's
does.
Tessa. I just do.
Leave her alone. She's Tessa.
No, she's a psychopath killer, and I just feel like it's Tessa. She honestly doesn't remember it, so that's why she seems innocent and seems shocked by all of this. But I feel like it's her. Tessa, you in danger, girl.
Oh, okay. Samantha, who do you think is the Silver Bells killer?
Allison.
Allison. Give us a quick rundown. Why do you think it's Allison?
Her face throughout the episode, like her persona, it just totally changed when she, like Poppy said, her world ended. Once that happened, she was more cautious. And when, I don't know who she was hugging at the end of the episode, when they were watching the news for the manhunt on Garrett, she was hugging whoever and she was peering at the TV in this eerie way. And I was like, oh, you don't look worried at all. You kind of want them to find him and kill him, don't you? Something's wrong there. And she has an alibi through Naomi and all this mayor stuff. So I think it could be her, honestly.
Okay. I think if I had to choose one, man, I don't know. I mean, I feel like when the DNA evidence came up for saying that, it was Mitch, that it was, his DNA, I feel like he was covering up for somebody. I feel like he ditched the belt in the tunnel, to cover for, one of the children. So I think on that note, I think Oh, darn it. I don't know. I want to say, who knows? I want to make. I was hoping it'd be interesting, and maybe it might be Cam. And I feel like those repressed memories are maybe just of him doing it. But I don't know. It's crazy. It'd be really interesting if it was like I don't know, like Christina or maybe Madeline's lover, like something like that. That'd be kind of interesting. But if I had to choose one for sure, probably would have to go with Cam for right now because I like Madeline, even though she can be one crazy woman. But who knows? We still got to see a couple more episodes to even make our decision. But on that note, you guys can join us next time for a brand new installment of the Silver Bells Murders. Visit poppychuloradio.com/archives to download this episode and many more. Registered users will gain access to our archives of previously aired broadcasts. You can also download tonight's broadcast through iTunes. Just search for the Silver Bells Murders and subscribe. Please like Poppy Chulo Radio on Facebook by going to facebook.com/poppychuloradio. You guys can help support Poppy Chulo Radio financially by visiting gofundme.com/poppychuloradio. Email us via contact@poppychuloradio.com with any questions, suggestions, comments, or hell, even concerns. Are you interested in joining the Poppy Chulo Radio team as an on-air personality or maybe even a blog contributor? Email talent@poppychuloradio.com. Co-hosts wish the listeners a happy good night.
Good night, listeners. Silver Bells Killer, we're gonna find you.
Good night, listeners. I hope you enjoyed this eerie episode.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for a brand new installment of the Silver Bells Murders. Have a great night, everyone.